Nestled in the Himalayas, one of the most unique species on Earth, the red panda, is in grave danger.
Whole red panda habitat of Nepal has been fragmented into 300 small patches.
This rare animal is suffering due to human greed.
Poaching cases of red panda has been dramatically increased.
There may be fewer than 2,500 left in the wild. But there is hope. One woman has devoted her life to fight these forces, determined to make a difference.
रेड पान्डा संरक्षण गर्नको लागि अझै पनि म एकदम लाग्छु धेरै भन्दा धेरै.
This is the journey of the Firefox Guardian. The remote forests of the Himalayas are the last remaining home to the magnificent red panda, lovingly called the firefox, an endangered species struggling to survive a devastating fur and pet trade. But Red Panda Network has come to the rescue, working with forest guardians from the local communities. Each month, they head deep into the panda territory to gather important data and search for signs of poaching. But they face a huge challenge. Red pandas are hard to find. Only a handful have ever seen them in the wild. For one of them, it's been a long road to become a guardian.
मेरो नाम मेनुका भट्टराई हो र मेरो घर वरिपरि जंगल छ र भिर पाखा घर नजिकै एउटा खोला छ. मैले 6 वर्षको हुँदादेखि मैले जंगल प्रवेश गरेको. त्यो बेला मलाई जंगल जाँदा त्यस्तो चराचुरुङ्गी कराएको नि ठीक लाग्यो र अरु यसो मसिनो बोट बिरुवाहरू देख्दाखेरि सानो सानो थियो र यो हुर्केर कत्रो ठुलो हुन्छ कि यत्रै बस्छ होला जस्तो महसुस लाग्थ्यो त्यतिखेर. म चाहिँ रेड पान्डा नेटवर्कको महिला फरेस्ट गार्जियन हो र यो मेरो कथा हो.
Menuka and her team are about to set off on their next mission. A previous trek revealed an abandoned nest, a sure sign that a panda here has recently given birth.
आज हाम्रो उद्देश्य भनेको रेड पान्डा खोजेर भेट्ने उद्देश्य हो.
They're not the only ones praying for a successful mission.
लाग्छ नि अनि चिन्ता त किन लाग्दैन. कतिलाई आउँछ भने बेलुका पनि हेरेर बस्नुपर्छ. अब वन डुल्न जाने मान्छे बा केही जीव जन्तु निक्लेर खायो कि पनि भन्नु पर्यो.
These dense bamboo forests can be dangerous, but this is panda country. The pandas here contribute to the natural balance of this challenging environment.
खासै मलाई जंगल जो वन गस्ती जाँदा मोनिटरिङमा जाँदाखेरि गाह्रो भनेको पानी परेको टाइममा अलि गाह्रो हुन्छ. जंगलभित्र काँडाले घोज्छ.
It's the last week of April and monsoon is on its way. The team only have 3 days to complete their mission. Meanwhile, the forest provides important clues.
रेड पान्डाले यो मालियाको घाँस खायो कि खाएन भनेर हेरेको, तर उसले यो घाँस खाएको रहेनछ.
And later that morning, the guardians traced the empty nest.
यो चाहिँ 2 वर्ष अगाडिको गुड हो रेड पान्डा बस्ने ठाउँ र उसले यस्तै ठाउँमा उसले बच्चा जन्माउँछ सबै यो झ्याउहरू बटुलेर राख्छ अनि त्यस दुलोबाट कोही बच्चाहरू झरेर मर्छन् र यो रेड पान्डाको बच्चाहरू मर्ने कारण पनि यही हो यसमा सानो दुला हुन्छ अनि त्यहाँदेखि बच्चा तल छिर्छ त्यसले गर्दा ऊ मर्न सक्छ
They then follow a route they believe the pandas may have taken. But as always, the Himalayas have other plans.
तर आज पानी बढी परेर हामी यसो होत लाग्न भनेर यहाँ गोठमा आएर बसेको छौँ एकछिन
Menuka's personal journey has been just as challenging.
मलाई यो त्यो सबैले मलाई गरिसके पछाडि यस्तो हुन्छ भन्ने थाहा थिएन मैले सबभन्दा पहिला यो फोरेस्टर बनेर जङ्गल प्रवेश गरेँ त्यस पछाडि जङ्गल प्रवेश गरेर मैले त्यो काम पुरा गरेर त्यसको अलिक दिन 12-15 दिन पछाडि उनीहरूलाई सबै थाहा भएर यो मैला भएर यस्तो किन काम गर्नु यो के हो र गर्नु किन जङ्गल जानु त्यो रेड पान्डा भनेको के हो त्यसलाई के गर्नुपर्छ र महिलाहरूले यसरी जङ्गल किन हिँड्नु र हिँड्न सकिँदैन यो काम गर्नु के राम्रो हुन्थ्यो र यहाँ गाउँबाट त यो फोरेस्टर भएर यो जङ्गल किन कसरी जानु किन हिँड्नु र कसरी मैला भएर हिँड्न सकिन्छ र अहिले बुझ्दा चाहिँ रेड पान्डा रहेछ त्यतिखेर यसले त मान्छे पो खान्छ कि जस्तो डर लाग्यो मलाई यसो मान्छेतिर हेर्दाखेरि मलाई आएर खाइहाल्छ जस्तो लागेर अन्त त्यतिखेर त्यो रेड पान्डा देख्दाखेरि मलाई उफ्रिनु जस्तै मेरो एकदम खुसी हर्षको आँसु पनि झरो त्यसले गर्दा मलाई एकदम खुसी लाग्छ रेड पान्डा देख्दाखेरि र यो रेड पान्डा अझै पनि मलाई एकदम राम्रो लाग्छ
With newfound spirit, the team follow a strategy to split up in search of the panda. As they head deeper into the forest, excitement grows. Menuka catches a glimpse of red. But the moss here plays tricks on even the expert eye. And despite their bright red coat, the pandas are well hidden by these misty jungles. But Menuka has worked hard to see more than most.
भन्ने मेरो सपना थियो र एकदमै मलाई मन पर्छ र म पनि यसमा काम गर्छु भन्दा उहाँहरूले अब म पुरुषहरू जतिको हिँड्न सक्छु होला पुरुषहरूले गर्ने काम गर्न सक्छु होला भन्न भित्रदेखि हिम्मत आयो अनि त्यही यो रुखमा रेड पान्डाको दिशा भेट्यो अहिले अब हामीले रेड पान्डा भेट्नको लागि केही समयपछि भेटिन्छ जस्तो आशा लागिरहेको छ मलाई यहाँ आउँदै कहीँ छ जस्तो लागेको छ यो आलो दिशा हो यो
As their second day ends, Menuka fears the team are running out of time to find the young panda. Darkness in this forest brings leopards and black bears. For now, the team must stop their search and seek shelter.
ताप्लेजुङ जिल्लामा पहिले रेड पान्डा धेरै पाइन्थ्यो तर अहिले गएर यो रेड पान्डा भनेको एकदमै लोप भएर गएको जनावर रहेछ उसलाई सबै मान्छेहरूले उसको संरक्षण गर्यौँ भने त्यसको पनि संरक्षण हुन्छ समाजले भयो र सामुदायिकले भयो कुरा अलिक बढ्दै गयो अनि यस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भने पछाडि उहाँहरूले पनि मलाई अहिले गएर सहयोग गर्नुभयो
So far, the team have had no success. But knowing this might be their last chance to find the young panda, they decide to explore an area where the trail is even more dangerous.
माथि छ जङ्गल
यो रेड पान्डा एकदम राम्रो छ कि हेर्दाखेरि हेरिरहँ परेको छ एकदमै माया लाग्दो छ यो रेड पान्डा यो 1.5 वर्षको साइजको हो यो
Menuka believes this is the cub from the nest. It's a huge relief for the team and will ensure the cub's safety from poachers.
मान्छेलाई रेड पान्डा मार्ने अधिकार छैन सबैभन्दा उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ जनचेतनाको कमीको कारणले गर्दाखेरि मार्छन् र यसको महत्त्व नबुझेर मार्न सक्छन् मलाई त आज यस्तो यो रेड पान्डा देख्दा यस्तो भावुक भयो कि ए भगवान यो चाहिँ धेरै समयसम्म बाँच्नुपर्छ
Finding this cub is another success for the Firefox Guardians, giving Menuka hope that what she has fought to achieve is still helping to secure the future of her Firefoxes.
किनभने रेड पान्डाको धेरै महत्त्व छ र यो गाउँ समाजले नजोगाएमा अरू कसले जोगाउन सक्छ र हामीले नै जोगाउनुपर्छ
Deep within an Australian forest, a famous star is facing his toughest performance. A superb lyrebird called the Pretender. And his greatest fan is Jan. Male lyrebirds must compete to win the hearts of females. The Pretender is the reigning champion. But having lost a critical part of his costume, he has just one long tail feather left. Will he be able to stay at the top and remain the great Pretender? Each winter, the Dandenong Ranges near Melbourne hosts the annual lyrebird breeding contest. With lights, stages, and dazzling costumes. The competition is fierce, and only the best performing males will secure a mate. This normally requires 2 curved tail feathers, called lyrates. That's how the lyrebird got its name. Pretender's story is known due to the hard work of one lady.
I just think he's magnificent.
Known as the lyrebird lady. Jan and her team of lyrebird enthusiasts have been watching the population here for nearly 60 years.
We've got certain favourites that we love. I've probably spent more time than other people with Pretender. He's such a placid bird. You can get quite close to him. And he's a little girl.
Jan has followed Pretender for more than half a decade. She's won his trust and made him into something of a celebrity.
I think he quite likes the camera. I think he does. He didn't initially. So we used to say, Pretender, you've got to get more person-friendly, particularly for photographers.
But this year, Jan is worried that Pretender's time at the top may be under threat.
Oh, one feather, that's sad, isn't it? One lyrate. That's a bit embarrassing.
Something has been attacking him and he's dropped these as a decoy to get away from the fox. I would imagine it's a fox. It's like injuring your leg if you're a sportsman and you do a knee injury or something like that and you can't play footy for the rest of the season.
Jan can only guess what the impact will be.
I don't think any of us know what happens when a bird's tail is damaged. As far as I can see, he's behaving absolutely normally. He's trying, he's calling, he's getting engaged in territorial chase. He's defending his territory. But if it's about his dance, his call and his display, one would imagine that a girl can tell that there's something missing.
As dawn breaks, males from all around are warming up.
The first thing you hear is kookaburras and then you hear the lyrebirds calling in the top of the trees. And then they tend to start singing against each other, singing in unison with each other.
It is the battle of the bird mimics, and Pretender is an incredible ventriloquist.
I love his kookaburra. I love his whipbird. And my absolute favourite is the little twitty birds.
But now it's the costume round, and Pretender could be in trouble. And as rivals move in on his territory, his vulnerability is showing. A younger male in full feather makes his move for Pretender's patch. Invader wins, and Pretender is knocked off his perch. The next morning, Pretender is nowhere to be seen.
We should put a radio tracker on him. He could be here, we don't know.
It is the first time Jan has been unable to find him.
There's not even a peep out of him. Oh, he's just not calling. I think we've lost him. But we are very near where the girl's got her nest.
It seems Pretender's territory was worth fighting for. A young female has moved in.
Maybe she doesn't know what to expect. Or she's not as discriminating against a male that's got a poor tail.
And her inexperience is also showing in other ways.
This girl's nest, to me, is like a gypsy's caravan. It's got everything hanging off everywhere. Every time I've seen her run from her nest, it's always been with moss, and normally birds don't use that much moss in their nest.
And just when all seems to be lost, there's another surprise. Pretender makes his entrance. And the young female can't help but notice.
There's a little thing going on between those two. If I was the mother of that boy, I'd say, I think he's got a new girlfriend.
But will she choose a male with a damaged display? A few days later, Jan and her team find promising evidence of Pretender's success.
When she's mated, there's a little indentation in the mound, and then there's some feathers. Yeah, there's been a mating on this mound.
Definitely looks like.
Yep.
But can the cameras reveal the proof?
Oh, look at this. Oh. Gee, I wonder, he might have mated her there. Look at that. So there's the female and he's dancing around her. So maybe all is not lost. No. And there she is there. So usually when she stops circling like that and he gets behind her, that usually means he's in with a chance. There again, see.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. It just means that although he's got a lyrate missing, he's still able to mate. Maybe tail isn't as important as we thought it was. Maybe it's all about your song and your dance. Good on him.
Our aquatic ecosystems are important because They are among the most pristine that remain in North America, for sure, in the contiguous 48 United States. These aquatic ecosystems support functionally intact ecosystem processes which extend both from what's within the waters to the terrestrial environment. Yellowstone's aquatic ecosystems are incredibly diverse. The one thing also I would say about Yellowstone's aquatic ecosystems is that just about every freshwater species that exists could probably find a place suitable to live here, which makes it then also vulnerable to invasion over time if we're not protecting these places. There are several subspecies of cutthroat trout, of which 2 of them still persist in Yellowstone. That's Yellowstone cutthroat trout and West Slope cutthroat trout. They're unique because here in Yellowstone they support an ecosystem that includes a lot of important animals that other people come to the park to see, like grizzly bears and river otters. So the native cutthroat trout of Yellowstone National Park are being threatened by non-native introduced fishes that were brought into the park actually intentionally in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The lake trout were introduced to what were fishless Lewis and Shoshone lakes in the upper Snake River, but somehow they made their way to Yellowstone Lake. The non-native lake trout are highly predatory species, so the lake trout had a huge impact on the native cutthroat population of Yellowstone Lake and caused a severe decline in the cutthroat trout. An example of the level of the cutthroat trout decline can be seen at one of the primary spawning streams called Clear Creek. We have counts of the spawning cutthroat trout at Clear Creek that date back to the 1940s. Around 1980, nearly 70,000 fish were counted ascending Clear Creek to spawn in the spring. That declined over time due to the lake trout to the point where in the late 2000s, we counted only about 600 fish ascending Clear Creek to spawn that year. So that's the level of magnitude of change that occurred due to the lake trout invasion of Yellowstone Lake. Lake trout do not ascend streams during the spring to spawn. They spawn actually within the lake itself. So the lake trout are not accessible then to ospreys and bald eagles. They're not accessible to grizzly bears, black bears on spawning streams in the spring because they're not there. So if the cutthroat trout were to disappear and we were to allow the lake trout to thrive within the lake, all the animals that have depended on the cutthroat trout would also be displaced or gone. We've been removing over 300,000 lake trout per year. But now, finally, in 2018, we're seeing a significant decline in the numbers of lake trout in the lake and the numbers of lake trout that we're catching by our netting program, which is a huge signal to us that this program is really working. Anglers do play a role at suppressing lake trout from Yellowstone Lake. We have a must-kill regulation. So if an angler does catch one out there, they're required to keep it or at least kill it before they put it back in the lake. We know that tens of thousands of lake trout are removed annually by anglers from Yellowstone Lake, which is a huge benefit to us. Our goals here are to suppress the lake trout and allow the cutthroat trout to rebound and recolonize naturally on their own. What we're hoping to see ecologically is a return of these animals that depend on our cutthroat trout as an important source of food through different times of the year. Especially our grizzly bears and black bears, which we're already seeing come back to some of the spawning streams in the spring. We want to see a further rebound of those animals coming back to feed upon spawning cutthroat trout. One key indicator will be our osprey population around Yellowstone Lake, because ospreys only eat fish. And so once the cutthroat declined, the ospreys then were largely displaced from the lake ecosystem. We want to see those osprey come back and feed upon the cutthroat trout the way they once did. This park is really intact when it comes to aquatic invasive species, and so we still have time to prevent the introduction of anything else that could cause tremendous ecological harm. It's essentially the best of what we have in our country right now. You know, the majority of this ecosystem remains naturally intact, naturally functioning, and we need to keep it that way. That's the mission of the National Park Service.
L'océan est un cadavre de baleine. Il repose inerte, il semble mort, mais dans ses entrailles il y a la vie. Parfois le cadavre est toxique, rendu malade sa vie durant, diffusant ce mal à la mort. Il est un serpent dépourvu d'yeux, dévorant la couleur. Les algues en font un festin et se multiplient jusqu'à occulter le soleil, une asphyxie qui harcèle les êtres. Des fantômes sont apparus, ni morts, ni vivants, inanimés. Leur lenteur et leur couleur chatoyante en font des mets de choix, mais en manger ne tait pas la faim. Affamé, l'estomac plein. Et dans l'ombre se meut un tout autre genre de fantôme. Aveugles, ils errent dans le vide. Et sans personne pour les dévorer, ils envahissent l'espace, le saturant. L'océan ralentit. Il devient une masse informe de vivants vouée à la dégénérescence. Un imperceptible grésillement à une échelle globale. Une affection atteignant les plus faibles, ceux qui ont choisi de protéger leur chair avec leurs os. Cette dégénérescence un jour a été poussée à l'extrême, le dépassement de la création. L'ignition de 1000 soleils en un instant. La disparition de l'eau, la fracturation des sols. Des plaies béantes s'ouvrirent, vomissant leur contenu dans l'océan, tout l'océan. Les êtres devinrent stériles, leurs corps se révoltèrent. L'océan est un cadavre de baleine. La vie y grouille, elle y grouillera toujours.
À la source du fleuve, qui de son cours paisible pénètre amoureusement la mer de toutes les villes, la cité vlatavine, en bordure des forêts de Bavière, sous l'écorce fendue des fiers épicéas de Sumava, sommeille un animal à la taille minuscule et qui pourtant inspire une crainte séculaire. Bostrich typographe, coléoptère invasif de la famille des scolites. Son corps cylindrique d'un brun profond aux accents rougeâtres, cerclé de 6 pattes en forme de harpon, s'embrase en son arrière d'une chevelure de feu. Cette oblongue capsule, découpée par le centre, est le pudique étui de deux charmantes ailes, qui révèlent l'élégance de cet être fourchu, dont la marche difficile ne laissait présager tant de grâce et de prestige. Délices de l'épicéa, antennes tâtonnantes, mandibules acérées, le typographe se délecte du bois mort. Dans l'écorce, le mâle perce vaillamment un premier orifice et libère les senteurs qui attirent la femelle. Enivrée par le grisant parfum de cette promesse d'amour, celle-ci rejoint le mâle dans le creux de son arbre et s'adonne éperdue aux voluptés exquises d'une passion insouciante. Grosse d'une portée nouvelle, la femelle creuse un large sillon dans lequel elle accouche de ses larves. Voraces, les marmots puisent dans le libère de l'épicéa l'eau et les glucides nécessaires à leur développement et prolongent le tronçon maternel en de nombreuses galeries, imprimant sur le bois de gracieux ornements aux courbes serpentines. Dans la chaleur de cette chambre secrète, l'insecte se transforme. De larve, il devient nymphe et atteint l'âge adulte au bout de 8 semaines. Lentement, le bois mort se délite par l'action insatiable des larves typographes et des nombreux insectes venus trouver refuge dans les ombres mouvantes de ces galeries sans fin. Le silencieux travail de ces fins calligraphes restitue à la terre les vivants composants de sa fécondité, prélude des germinations nouvelles, exorde répété d'un cycle pacifique. Si, malgré ses vertus dans nos écosystèmes, l'appétit de l'insecte est tellement redouté, c'est que sans crier gare, le scolite prolifère sitôt que le bois mort encombre les forêts. Les armées de guerriers ainsi constituées assiègent les arbres sains, triomphant par le nombre des résines défensives. Leur forage répété paralyse la sève, et l'arbre désarmé succombe incessamment à cet assaut fatal. Le goulu typographe bouscule sans ménage les fondements d'une économie prospère qui tire des vertus du bois de nombreuses valeurs. Usages infinis de l'épicéa, on en fait des meubles et des maisons, des instruments de musique, du papier, de la bière et des sirops, des huiles essentielles. Il sert à l'occasion d'arbre de Noël. Le premier avion de l'histoire était lui aussi en épicéa. Au sud de la République tchèque, dans le parc national de Sumava, la population de scolites augmente de façon inquiétante depuis le début des années 2000. En 2007, la tempête Kirill traverse l'Europe. Certaines des zones les plus protégées du parc sont ravagées par les vents. Les arbres morts s'accumulent, offrant un milieu propice à la reproduction de l'insecte, dont la prolifération devient rapidement un sujet de conversation nationale. En février 2011, Jan Straski reprend la direction du parc et se met en campagne pour abattre les arbres infestés.
Takže ano, zasahujeme všude, kde můžeme zasahovat. Ty zásahy jsou velké, ale ten kůrovec nás zatím předbíhá.
Pour nettoyer la forêt du scolite, Straski emploie de lourdes machines et des pesticides dont l'usage était jusque-là prohibé dans le parc. Les organisations de défense de l'environnement répliquent en adressant une lettre au gouvernement appelant à stopper la destruction de Sumava.
Postřiku, zákaz biocidů a pokácené stromy.
La situation s'aggrave à l'été 2011, lorsque les écologistes, ignorés par les autorités tchèques, décident d'organiser un blocus des aires de déboisement. Les militants s'enchaînent aux arbres et grimpent dans les branches. L'administration du parc fait appel aux forces de l'ordre pour les déloger. Soutenus par certains chercheurs, les écologistes défendent le principe de non-intervention. Une fois la forêt détruite par le typographe, une nature vierge pourra enfin voir le jour. Au cœur de cette controverse pèsent aussi les soupçons sur la possible connivence entre l'administration de Sumava et l'industrie du bois, laquelle ferait pression sur les dirigeants du parc pour abaisser les niveaux de protection de certains espaces naturels. Le typographe serait ainsi le prétexte opportun qui justifierait l'agrandissement des zones de coupe, selon les exigences des industriels. En 2009, Miloš Zeman, actuel président de la République tchèque, déclarait qu'il se battrait pour l'abolition du parc une fois la forêt détruite par le scolite. Il est pourtant une raison plus ancienne à la présence de ce petit insecte dans les vertes forêts de Bohême. C'est la monoculture de l'épicéa, pratiquée dans ces montagnes pendant des dizaines d'années, qui a rendu Sumava vulnérable aux attaques des espèces invasives. Ce sont les hommes qui, par le fer, ont affaibli la forêt et les défenses naturelles que sa diversité lui procurait. Les mêmes qui s'empressent aujourd'hui de couper les arbres et de tuer le typographe, alors que quelques décennies suffiraient à faire naître un nouvel écosystème. Est-ce à dire que le spectacle de cette nature dégradée est si intolérable qu'il faille le dissiper comme un mauvais rêve, l'ensevelir comme le spectre obsédant d'un souvenir coupable ? Car n'est-il pas vrai que dans ce paysage qui peu à peu s'éloigne, c'est notre œuvre qui se dévoile. Nature trop semblable à nous-mêmes, triste reflet de...
For time untold, we depended on our relatives, the buffalo, for everything. We followed their path. They gave us our shelter, our clothing, our food, and our direction. Our people respected the buffalo. We lived together, in balance with each other, in balance with the land. Then, everything changed. In the beginning, we heard only rumors. Foreign people were coming to our land. Wherever they appeared, the buffalo vanished. But here, we still had what we needed. The last days of our buffalo arrived with the railroad, the hide hunters, and the military. Buffalo fell by the millions. Our relatives, slaughtered for sport, for hides, for tongues. We fought, but as the buffalo and other game disappeared from our lands, we began to starve. So we turned to the forts for food. They moved us onto reservations at a time when few buffalo remained. In 1883, 2 short years after the arrival of the train, the last Fort Peck buffalo was killed. Our great buffalo nation had dwindled from millions to just a few hundred. For a century we survived, the buffalo living in our hearts and ceremonies, but gone from our land. Yellowstone was the buffalo's last stronghold. There, they began to recover, but like us, were confined by government boundaries. After a century without buffalo, 19 tribes came together to begin the process of bringing our relatives back home. We met the many challenges with the resilience of a buffalo facing into a storm. After years of hard work and planning, we welcomed buffalo back to Fort Peck. Many among us had never seen a living buffalo before. It was a time of rebirth and celebration. We sang our relatives home, and they danced when their hooves touched the grass. Today, our leaders are bringing our buffalo back, not just onto our land, but into our lives. In time, we hope that more tribes will join us in welcoming our relatives home. The buffalo have always taken care of us. Now it's our turn to take care of them.
I've learned to appreciate the quiet in the cold. It's just not something you get in any other place and in any other season. We're the loudest things out there coming along on our snowmobiles. Thinking about rare species, they're such an important part of the landscape and something that we work so hard to preserve. And that's always what's driven me. That's where I want to make the most difference. Because I've worked with threatened and endangered species for most of my career, used to not seeing what I study. A lynx is a very snow-adapted cat, and we don't know how many there are. We pick up scat or hair, and then from the scat or hair, you get genetic information, and you can identify a species or an individual. With using camera traps, you don't always get the perfect picture, and it's often hard to tell if that's a lynx or a bobcat. So we try and use track surveys and cover more of the areas that the animals actually inhabit. Even experts misidentify tracks. When tracks melt out, they're hard to identify. We make mistakes, we're human.
I have definitely always had an affinity for river systems and really anything aquatic. So when I learned about tools like environmental DNA, it was mind-blowing that I can then just go out, collect a water sample, and tell you what species were upstream. So environmental DNA in its truest form is DNA that is shed from a species into the environment. So that DNA could be cells from skin, from hair, from feces, from urine, anything that is then shed from that animal and into the environment. Here at the Genomics Center, we've analyzed over 10,000 samples for 80 different species and are really working to make that tool available for anyone across the world. So this all came from a collaborative meeting with geneticists, with carnivore researchers, with the eDNA program, and we were all kind of talking about plans for winter sampling, how the Lynx crew was going to be doing their field work, and then kind of as a group kind of came to this moment of like, well, snow tracks are basically just water samples if we melt them out. There should be no reason that shouldn't work, just as we treat a normal stream sample.
It's been through a lot of conversations and working with Tommy, and then one day we just decided, let's see what happens when we scoop snow. Let's test this.
It was one of those moments where you come back into lab, you plug in the results, you're waiting for it to load, and all of a sudden they pop up on the screen, and it's one of those eureka moments. We can detect DNA from snow tracks. Like, that alone in itself is crazy.
It's really exciting to see all of the success that eDNA has had with detecting rare species in streams, and to bring that onto land. There's no question, we find a lynx and it is a lynx, and we don't have to focus our efforts on that. We can instead focus on these broader conservation questions. I think that we're not going to be able to do conservation without collaboration. We're providing people with good science-based information and letting them make more informed decisions for conservation. And I think there's nothing greater than that.
So I have never seen a lynx. Who knows if I ever will. But with eDNA, I don't have to see it to know it's there. And that is truly remarkable about this technology. By detecting a single cell of DNA on an entire landscape, we can effectively influence how over 5 million acres of land are managed.
One day in 1967, a man left his cabin, hiked deep into the mountains of Washington state, and shot a grizzly bear. It was the last legal kill here, and one of the last bears. Just 1 year later, this valley became part of the brand new North Cascades National Park. Nestled in a 10,000 square mile blanket of wild land, mountains, rivers, and lakes. In fact, one of the wildest places left in the Wild West. Since that time, only fleeting glimpses of these ghost bears, and mysterious photographs from a few people each year. Today we think there are fewer than 10 alive, struggling against the odds. It's a pattern that was repeated across the USA. Grizzly bears were left in only the wildest places. To many in Washington state, these bears represent what's left of the wild in America, and they want to see them back.
Well, certainly they're part of the Northwest.
Awesome, would be amazing.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. They were here once before.
Bring them back.
After decades of research and education, wildlife agencies are working to restore these North Cascades grizzly bears. But how do you bring bears back when they've almost disappeared? The science is pretty clear on that. It's not an easy process, but it's a really fascinating one. When you have almost no bears left, like in the North Cascades, there's this process called augmentation, where you take bears from a healthy population and you add them to an area where the bears are low in number to prevent their local extinction. And we can learn from Montana, where it's happening right now. I want to meet with some of the community members there, people who live and work and recreate in grizzly bear country, and the biologists behind the augmentation program.
Program that's been ongoing.
Montana, grizzly country. Wayne Caseworm is a grizzly bear biologist. He's been on the front line in northwest Montana for over 30 years and has some fascinating stories to tell, including one about a bear he named Irene.
Irene is the basis of this entire story in the Cabinet Mountains.
It's clear this was a very special bear to Wayne, and she has one of the most incredible stories of any translocated bear. But how do you catch a bear like Irene? This is where it gets interesting. This is Tim Manley. He captures bears near Glacier National Park to translocate them to Wayne in the Cabinet Mountains to the northwest. How long have you been working on bears now?
Oh, I've been working on grizzlies for 32 years.
Tim has become an authority on catching grizzly bears.
The traps that we use are big round metal tubes. They have a door on one end that slides open, and at the other end we tie bait, and when the bear enters the trap, pulls on the roadkill deer, the door slams shut behind. We put up remote cameras so we can monitor to see what comes in case we don't catch something, but maybe a bear will come and check it out.
It's tough to outsmart these intelligent animals. It can take weeks. And even for Tim, it's a bit more of an art than a science. So we're back at our grizzly bear trap location from yesterday. And sure enough, it looks like Tim has got some footage of the young male that came and explored, and he stuck his head into the trap, took the gut pile, so at least we've fed a young bear for the night. So let's see what Tim's got on this camera here.
We got a lot of photos of a young bear. Came in and took the gut pile off.
Quite gingerly took it, didn't he?
Yep.
He looked
Yep.
suspicious, eh?
Yep, there he goes.
When things go well, Tim gets his perfect bear.
Hey Wayne, this is Tim. It's about
Usually what
1:30.
first happens is I get a phone call from Tim that he's got a bear that is captured that he thinks is a good candidate.
For bears that we want to move to the Cabinet Mountains, we want bears that have no history of conflict with people, 2 to 4 to 5 years of age.
We anesthetize the bear, take a variety of weights, measurements.
321.5.
61.5.
5.5.
6.5.
DNA and also for that.
And we fit a radio collar on the bear.
We take the utmost care when we have these bears in captivity.
You care about these bears?
Yep,
Yeah.
I care about them greatly, yes.
Yeah.
Once the bear is recovered, oftentimes that same day, we will take it out to our release site, open the trap door, and off the bear goes.
It's 1993. As Irene is released into the cabinets, no one knows how it will go. She's at the center of a pioneering effort to save her species here, and she's just 2 years old. But just like in the North Cascades, this is about people too. How did they feel when Irene and other bears arrived?
There were a number of people who came into this whole process very skeptical about things.
There was a lot of opposition. Why are they wanting to bring grizzly bears back into this country?
I do not want to make my children afraid of them, but they need to be aware.
Fear of the unknown, dragged out of our beds at night by grizzly bears.
There were a lot of folks that weren't very excited about this idea.
And that's why we took a year of public education and outreach to the public before we ever let a bear go.
Wayne was like the perfect guy for that.
You took the kids out into the fields with Wayne at times, eh?
We did. We would spend actually a whole day up in the Cabinet Mountains wilderness.
The guy is just an absolute knowledge base.
Straightforward, candid, honest with the people of Libby.
Today, people are far more understanding of grizzly bear management than they were when we started.
It's amazing how fast that turned around.
Really?
They saw that it wasn't going to have an enormous impact on their lives. This is a pretty woodsy group. They're not really all that afraid.
I see it just only as a positive for the wilderness and for the people around here.
We've done a lot of work to again, bring our community along and get them used to the idea of having bears and seeing bears occasionally, and that's important as well.
And when I'm in the wilderness and I see a grizzly bear, I'm just thrilled. I mean, it's excitement and a success story.
It really is so normal to me that I don't even really think about it.
People just really are proud of the fact that we were willing to share our space with these creatures who clearly belong here.
They inspire something deep inside. You know how little kids, you hear them giggle and laugh? That's how I felt when I saw it, because it made me feel so good.
We put 19 bears in the cabinets now, dating back to 1990. Few, if any, of these bears have turned up in conflict situations. When they're wearing a radio collar and when they've got ear tags in their ears, I've had relatively few sightings of any of these animals. I do a lot of monitoring typically from aircraft. We do some ground monitoring too, to see where the bear's going.
Irene lost her radio collar after just 2.5 years, in 1995. So Wayne was unable to track her. It was anyone's guess if she would survive.
I think it's been largely successful, but there's been some bumps in the road along the way as well. And unfortunately, they don't all live.
They were the underdog, and can we even hope that they will, be able to raise a family here?
But no matter how much Wayne can track and follow a bear, he can't always save their lives. 16 years after she was released into her new Cabinet Mountains home, she was killed by a hunter. She was 18 years old. Perhaps this makes the return of the grizzly bear even more important in the North Cascades. The North Cascades could easily support 200 grizzly bears, but it might take 100 years to reach that number. And it emerges that bears like Irene can really turn things around. She was missing for 9 years, and it turns out that in that time, she had become a mother.
This is a picture of Irene and 2 of her yearling offspring. These 2 right here are those females.
So Wayne began her family tree, and then discovered more.
We have genetic evidence that she produced at least 10 cubs of her own that are there.
And then this one, who's this?
And this one is Irene's first litter of cubs, and that would be this particular bear right here, 2019, born in 1997. She has 2 cubs with her in that picture, and that's these 2 cubs right here, a male and a female.
So this meant that even more incredibly, Irene had also become a grandmother to at least 13 cubs. So these are Irene's grand cubs.
Oh, great. Couple of bears like Irene, and then you got a population growth.
Exactly.
Oh, she has a family tree.
Isn't that crazy?
Is that a girl? That's a success.
Yeah.
That's success right there.
Holy cow.
Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
This is a mama grizzly bear. And not only a mama, but a grandma as well. Do you like bears?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
You do?
Do you?
Accommodating these big wild animals on the landscape takes courage, and sometimes just the right place and just the right bear. It's a turning point here in the North Cascades, a chance to ignore the myths and folklore about this magnificent animal and do the right thing. Research shows there is plenty of food and plenty of space for a healthy population, and that people want them back. Biologists know that bears won't bounce back on their own in the Cascades. These mountains will need their own Irenes if the bears are to come home. In the North Cascades, we can right the wrongs. Imagine it for a moment. Places as wild as the North Cascades are becoming rarer in today's world. This beautiful part of the American West is a success story waiting to happen for the grizzly bear and for us. Because after all, it's not just about the grizzly bear. It's about the wild places we all need.